Yes, good day and welcome to another series on our descriptive statistics series. In the beginning, we spoke about the fact that you can use your own format. You can use Excel formulas to design your own summary table for any given data set. And in the second one, we use Excel built-in data analysis tool. That is the one right here. So we go to the data tab, then we pick it up right from here. Today, we are going to see how we can use pivot tables to summarize our data set. Now, in the first one, as and when you add data, as long as your table is formatted, you can actually add and your summary statistics will be updated alongside automatically. Now, in the second one, there is no way of updating it unless you will have to run it again. Today, we want to look at how we can use how we can use pivot tables to actually summarize our data set. So there's an example data set that I have gotten here. It's again, as in the first one, this data is not it's a fictitious data. I just created this one by myself, so it is not data that you can use for anything except for, of course, educational purposes like this. So here we have the department, we have the gender, and we have the scores. So we want to see how we can use these pivot tables to actually get a summary statistics for one or two of these. Now this is where you have uh, this particular pivot tables. This is where they come in handy, where we have categories like this. So in your summary table, you can even filter out what you want. So especially say, I want only the males results. You can filter out that in your summary statistics. So let's go dive straight away to the pivot tables. Now, once you've gotten your data organized in this manner into Excel, you first need to create a table format. You have to allow Excel to know that this is a table format. So how did we do that the last time? We selected the whole data set. So from ID to the very last, so we have about 1000 rows of data set. Then we hold our control key down and press the letter T. So we press control key T, and that will give us this small dialog box here. Now here the data is already selected, so we don't have to worry about it. And our headers is already indicated here, so automatically Excel has ticked that's one for us. My table has headers, and it's true we have headers in our table, so we just go ahead to click on OK, and this is how the format will look like. Now when you create a table like this, you have another tab here in the ribbon where you can actually change the design of your table to look like the way you want it. So all these and many other more hidden right here. You can pick anything that you want. Okay, so just leave it right here. Now that we are now here, we can go ahead to create our pivot tables. Without this one, it's difficult to create a pivot table and to get updates. But then let's see what we can do right now. So once you have this table set up and the format set up, we want to go to insert. That is where our pivot table tools are. Right at the left here, you can see there is a pivot table. So I click on pivot table and wait for this guy here to come. Now you can see that automatically it's selected table 2. I'm going to cancel this one and rename our table so that we can see what we are looking at instead of this already generated tables, label tables for us. So once you click insert anywhere in the table that you have created, then we go to the table design. At the left side here, you have a table name. So we can actually change the name of this particular table. Let's call it examination because we're talking about scores here. So I just change that name to examination. Now let's go back again to insert, and then we click on pivot. And now you can see that the table name is examination, what we have named. So in this way, you are able to tell that this is the table I'm looking for, especially when you have several tables there. You might get confused, table 1, table 2. Which of the tables am I working at? That might get you confused. So it is best that you label your tables names that you can identify when you see them. Right. So automatically we have a new worksheet where choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. So we want our results to be placed right here where we can be looking at our data set, and we are looking at our results at the same time. If we make changes and refresh, then we see the changes that is being made, not to be moving between worksheets. So for that reason, I will click on the existing worksheet. So we want to put it right here, and you see that this box is activated. I'm gonna go back here and you see, now you see that I am trying to click there, but the cursor is not even blinking, and this is even grayed out. The text is even grayed out. So click on it, your text has come back to active, and the cursor is right inside there. Just like we did in the last video about the data descriptive statistics in the data analysis tool, we do the same thing here. Once you see the cursor moving up and down right here, you choose anywhere that you want your results to be displayed. So I just put next to my data set, just one column away. Then I can go ahead to say, okay, now here it is asking choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables. We are not analyzing any multiple tables right now. And the table that we have is just one table that we are practicing on, and we don't have any intention, at least for now, we don't have any intention with of working with several tables at the moment. So I just leave it right here and then go ahead to click on OK. Then you can see that an empty um, pivot table is created for us, so we can now start populating it. Now once you see this, you can see that the active cell is within the pivot table. If I click outside, this one you are seeing right here disappears, but once I click anywhere inside it, then it comes back again. All right, so you can use this to now organize your pivot table the way you want it. First, let's look at let's say the departments and the scores, total scores in the departments. So I just click on this particular box here, then it comes down to the rows automatically. We can change that, of course, but for now, let me accept the defaults for now so that we see how it looks like. Then I go to the scores. I click on the scores, and that is there. So by default, we are getting some of the scores, but we can change it to any of the statistics that we're interested in. Then we have the grand total right here. Now, this might not make sense since we are talking about grades. So we probably would want to see the average per department. Then we can say this is maybe useful when you are looking at one course. Let's say a lecturer is teaching one course over several departments and they all sit in the class. So you would want to see which class is performing better and which class is low. Then you know how to reorganize your classes or reschedule at the department. So if all of them are fairly the same, we might just continue teaching all of the students in the different departments in one class. If we see that some students in one class, let's say class A is doing better than class B and that order, we probably would want to regroup them so that those who are good will be in one class, those who are lagging behind will be in one class. That way we are able to reorganize the teaching method for each of them so that all of them can catch up. So this is just an example. Now, how do we change this one here? If we come to the right side of the worksheet, in this pivot table fields, we see that the values here we can actually change. See the arrow down there? So click on the arrow, then we go to value fields, and then we have this value field settings. Right now we have the name that is given to us, that is the sum of the scores, is given as sum of scores by default, so we can change that one. So let's go ahead to change it to average because that's what we're looking for. So if we select the summarized value as average, then we come to the custom name here that is given to us. I want to replace it with the mean that I know exactly what it is. So I won't get confused with the average of something. Now the number format too, we might want to change that, especially if you have a column that is giving you more than 2 3 decimal places, um, and the decimal places are not uniform. You probably would want to make it either 2 or 1, just to be uniform in your decimal placing. So we click on this number here to get this particular table here. Then we go to custom and say, okay, I want just 2 decimal places, the number in 2 decimal places, no other thing added to it. And I say, okay, then okay again to give me whatever I need. All right, so now we have the mean of all the departments that is populated here. So what can we see here? Department E is doing better, followed by C, followed by A, and then followed by B. Even though the differences are not that much, but then there is a slight difference in the performances. Okay, so that's how we get a mean. What about the standard deviation or the variance? Again, we can go back to that value aside the field, table field, pivot table fields, and then again change the value field. Now, if you don't want to be coming back here, we can right click right here, and then we can change the values that we are looking for. So right now we have a number of them here that can give us whatever we need. Now, if you don't get what you're looking for in this list, there is more option here that will open the same dialog box that as we saw before, and then we can change the summarized values. So we're going to summarize the values by this time we're looking for the variance, that is standard deviation. This is variance right here, VAR. Then we can click on OK, and that is recalculated as variance for us. Again, this is not so informative as the standard deviation. So let's go get the standard deviation instead. So we go there and then we pick the standard deviation and relabel this one as standard deviation. I'm using abbreviations here. Okay, and that is done. Now let's go back. It's not just one that we needed something else again. So here I'm going to add the value, the score again to this one. So I'm pulling the score right here and putting it on top of the scores again. That makes them 2. So 1, I have the standard deviation. Now again I have sum of the scores. So I want to change this one to the mean. So by changing the values, more options, then summarize value by average, then I call that the mean. Then I can say okay. All right, so you can see the decimal place differences I was talking about. So I'm just gonna go back there and then change the format, the number format, to just 2 decimal places, and we leave it there. All right, so we have the mean, we have the standard deviation. Now the description of the table is your descriptive values is now complete. You can talk about the department, you can talk about the averages per department and the standard deviation. Now the standard deviation, as we indicated here previously, it measures the spread. Okay, whilst the mean is measuring the central location, the standard deviation is measuring the spread. So among all of these, the least value that we get, then the least spread out, the values are around your mean. So we can say that this last one, even though it is the highest, but then the standard deviation is wide. So we have so many of the values running away from the mean as compared to the C and then the B. So the B, you can say that here is 11.68. So compared to the A and the D, the values are least less spread out as compared to that of the A and the D. So that's how the standard deviation works in this case. So again, if you want another statistic that is the same way, you just have to pull the sum right back to this one, then you can create a table. Now, we were talking about updating the table automatically. If I change the value, let's say here 100, that is for male, then I come to, I'm looking for another B male, and I put another 100 here. Okay, So I expect this to be changing, but it's not. So if you want this to change, you will have to right click and refresh. Two ways to do that. If I right click on this, you see refresh right here. Or if I click inside the pivot table, then I come to the pivots analyze, pivot table analyze. So this particular tab, if I click here, I should see refresh right here. But right now, I prefer just to right click here, and it's shorter to get done to go through that process. So I right click here, and then let's look at the the average first. Actually, we didn't even need to add choose whether male or female, because we are simply looking at the total of B, not for male and female. All the same, let's consider this value here. Let me write it here. That is 69.81. So we can look at the differences. So I'm going to refresh the table, and this time we have it 70.1 as against this. So because we've added the hundreds, it has actually moved the mean upward. So what does this tell us? If we have extreme values, we definitely is going to have the mean to be pulled towards the value, the biggest value. So where we have widely dispersed data, or where we have so many outliers, the mean will not be able to tell us, be objective in telling us the central location. And that's where we look for the median to accomplish the same task as we want to use the mean for. All right. So that said, we can add another thing. Besides just getting the department, what about the male female? We might need that one too. So here I'm going to right click on this one and remove the standard deviation. We don't need that now, and take off these numbers. So let's go back to our scores and then add gender to it. So I'm going to click on gender, and gender is right here. I don't want it to be this way. Reading it this way, um, it's okay, but it's not looking so nice as a table and as a summary table. So we probably would want to make one of them to be the column and the other one to be the row. So I'm going to come to the settings here, and then look at what I can do. Pick the gender here. I want to pick that one and send to the columns. Okay, so we now have a nice table here. So we have the female column, we have the male column, we have the department. So the female in department A is having 69.45 as against the male, who has an average of 70.32. So the same way for A, B, C, and D. So the averages are split according to the category. So you still have your grand totals, grand means right here. Now, I told you initially this is particularly helpful when you easily want to filter out your data according to the groupings. So in this case, if the departments were many and I'm just looking at a particular set of departments, let's say for example you have different faculties and the departments are nested within the faculties, you probably do want to say, okay, let's say A and B is in one faculty. So I'd want to just look at faculty A, what is happening in faculty A. So I'll come to the filter here, deselect all of them, and only allow the two A and B to be selected, and say OK, and your summary table has summarized itself. I'll call it, if I'm allowed to call it that way, re-summarize itself to allow us to see what we have selected to see. So exactly this is how the pivot table works. If you update anything here, all you need to do is come to the pivot table, and then you have your update right there. Refresh it and you have your update. So I'm going to select all of them back. So we still have our complete table. Now let's go do one thing. Let's go to the very bottom, 1001. And then we put, let's say, A male. Then we want to put a very high number. This number is more than 100, which shouldn't happen, but then it's just for example's sake, want to show you something. All right, so let's go back to our summary table right here. Now you see the A, we still having the same. Right click on it and then refresh. and it has changed. Mean has changed. So that again is to tell you that it doesn't matter whether you're adding or you're changing these ones itself. Let's make it the next one, 1002. Again, the same A. We're looking for female this time, and this time we're looking for 5,000 and not just 1,000. Okay, so let's go to 5,000, refresh it again, and see things have changed tremendously. So now we have over 100% in the female calling for A, and 97 for the grant for A, the department A. So basically, we can add into our table once it's formatted, and we still get to update our pivot table and get the answers refreshed and given us the correct values. So basically, these are the things that we have learned. One, we try to organize it in the hard way by using Excel formulas by ourselves to organize our own table. Then the second one, we went to data, then data analysis, pick descriptive statistics right from there, and then we got our this descriptive statistics from here, and then we got our statistics. I'm not going to do that here. So basically, and in this video, we just looked at the pivot table. So these are the three ways that I said I'm going to teach you how to summarize your table using them, and I think I did. So with this, I am hoping that you'll be able to understand and be able to perform summary statistics by yourself, given the data set, no matter how large it is. This is basically how you're going to go about it. Thank you, and see you in another video.